Oh, thank you, George. So I'll probably be off video for most of the meeting. So we'll start with check-in. So I'm Teresa Elamine. I'm one of the conveners for the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee of the Advancing Human Rights Committee and organizer with the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia. One good thing that happened recently is that parents testified at a Georgia State Senate study committee on funding K-12 education. And that happened on Friday, the 21st. So we have built our strong family connections for fighting for money for education and not for war. So I will call on Philip Cole. I thought he was here. He was the first person. So I'll call on Philip Cole. Please introduce yourself. Check in, Philip. There you are, Philip, but you're muted.
Okay, I am Philip Cole. I am with the San Francisco branch and currently a at-large board member, and happy to be here today and looking forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Philip. So we'll go now with our chair of the Advancing Human Rights Committee, Donna.
Hello, Donna Peel here, Cape Cod branch convener, and just got some great news about an old friend who's in remission from cancer. She helped me a lot when I got sober 34 years ago. And so I'm so happy. Thank you.
That is good news. Samantha Turner.
Hi, I'm Samantha Turner in the South Piedmont branch of North Carolina. And the good news is that a few months ago, we started convening the EDAC of some of our friends here at WILP. And it's been something that I think is really important to WILP, and I think it's going to come along and be a really good, a really great thing for WILP. So I'm happy about it. And now that voting is winding down, we'll really have a little more time to really dive deep and get work done.
Well, that is great news. Glad to know. Alan Haber.
Hello, I'm Alan Haber in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And a good news, a really very positive experience. Odile and I went to an exhibit of African-American art at the Art Museum here in Ann Arbor at the university. And it happened that the new president of the university addressed the group on relations with Native Americans. There was Native American art from a group up in northern Michigan. And he spoke very positively about the repairing history and land return. And afterwards, I went and spoke with him and got a very positive reception, and I'm arranging a meeting. The university has its own struggle with reparations. I'll report in my report, but it was a very good experience to meet the brand new president. He just became president 2 days before. So I put our questions right in front of him before he had a chance to sit down.
Well, that sounds like progress. Really good news. Mary Foster.
Good morning. I'm with the, right now I'm with the Jane Addams branch. My name is Mary Foster. And one good thing is I am very grateful for my community garden plot.
Oh, that sounds like good, healthy news. Barbara Blong. Oh, unmute yourself, Barbara. Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Okay, that's great.
Okay, hello, everyone. I'm from San Francisco as well as Philip. And I guess my good news is that I just recently had a whole lot of people from my family visiting. So these past few weeks have been great. As far as my health goes, I'm working against cancer as well. So I'm glad to hear that your friend went into remission, Donna, and yeah, that's what I'm working on. Thank you.
Well, that is good news, Barbara. Great to be with family.
Yeah.
So, Pat O'Brien.
Hi, here on the Cape Cod branch, and the sun is shining after 2 days of rain and fog. So we are very happy today.
That is good news. You know, when you're in the deep south, it's like gonna be 75 degrees here and the sun is shining. It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
let's hear what's happening with Joan Goddard.
Hi, everybody. I'm in the San Jose, California branch and area, and I'm trying to think what's an appropriate good news. I guess would be that we're going to have our branch meeting on, excuse me, enough after this meeting that I'll be able to give them the results of this meeting, and we're going to have it on reparations. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is great news and totally appropriate for what we're trying to do here. So George Friday, you're last, and if you could put up the agenda after you give your good news.
Sure. George Friday in the Southern Piedmont branch in North Carolina. And last weekend I was in Atlanta. Last Saturday, I got to hang out with my brothers, which was great, and got to push my over the top introverted self by hanging out with the group of folks, although I did not hang out for the photos. I was sitting in the car while people were outside the hotel taking a group photo. And mostly because I was using my roller walker thing, is why I didn't want to get out of the car again and intrude, because it would be an intrusion to try to accommodate a chair in that situation. But it was awesome to be there, although I'm glad to be back home. Here comes Robin Lloyd.
Well, George, you should mention that your reason for being in Atlanta was for the national meeting of the Black Alliance for Peace, which was a powerful political meeting. So Robin Lloyd, let's hear from you, your name, branch, and one good thing you want to share with us before we put up the agenda. Robin Lloyd, come on.
There we go. There I am.
Oh, wonderful.
Everyone, I'm Robin Lloyd, Burlington branch, and welcome to everyone. And I just today got my Peace and Freedom and all sorts of yummy stuff in there. Hope you've been enjoying it.
Well, that's great because I got mine a couple of days ago. And yes, lots of yummy stuff. So George, if you could put up our short agenda for today. So we've done the check-in. Everyone has checked in. So I'll give the first report. And what we're asking for everyone here, someone from branches. I know we have 2 people from Southern Piedmont. We have 2 people from San Francisco, and we have 2 people from Cape Cod. So if one person can give the 3-minute report, or if you could split it up as a minute and a half, that would be great, because we're going to try to do the reports in 3 minutes. So George, if you could start my time now and give me the 1-minute warning. On October 5th, here in Columbus, the Reparations Task Force enjoyed a teach-in from Akinyele Umoja, who is a professor at Georgia State University in African American Studies. And he's done the teach-in here before in 2014, right after the Atlantic article came out from Ta-Nehisi Coates, A Case for Reparations. And so this was not his first time sharing this amazing, about 45-minute PowerPoint on the history of the fight for reparations. And the task force has a meeting this Saturday, which is October 29th. So we're still working on building the task force and putting the plans together for what we think are priorities for reparations ordinance. So that's my report, and we'll try to go in alphabetical order. So let's start with Allen and Ann Arbor, then we'll go to Cape Cod. So Alan, George, if you could take down the agenda, I think we're okay for the rest of the meeting. So Alan Haber, it's on you, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, well, I started to say I spoke with the new president of the university, and I'm arranging a meeting time with him. I had attended a class on the Black Action Movement, which was in the late 60s, early 70s, that was seeking proportional representation of Blacks in the student body of 10%, and it's barely has 5%. I was able to recall a past champion of reparations, a giant of a Black man, intimidating in his kind and gentle presence. He demanded of the Presbyterian Church enough to build a building and training of young Blacks in media production, Charles Thomas Jr. And he was my housemate for a little bit, a beautiful man, and it's good to remember people who put some shoulder behind the reparations demand. The International Day of Peace sought participation from a number of the significant people in the African American community here, and the one I wanted most agreed to moderate the discussion of the 5 R's of righting a wrong: recognition, repair, restoration, reparations, and reconciliation. It was an excellent discussion with a video that we'll be able to move around. The Peace Day report went to about 500 individuals, identifying reparations as a theme in the Ann Arbor Bicentennial Program as we enter our 3rd century here, 1824 to 2024. So that's quite aligned with the United Nations decade. And the official planning committee will soon meet where this discussion will continue. There is a need for a summary of what is happening in all other places, California, nationally, other cities, with links for more information. A historic map is being drawn of the African American Ann Arbor history around the old Black school, now the community high school, which is beginning to see in historic terms exactly what has been the story in this town, needing repair. We're seeking a follow-up with the past work that was done on the 10 major Ann Arbor institutions in terms of the effects of racism and the reparations required. And we did last year, What is Your Dream on Martin Luther King Day? In 2023, we will probably do that again with perhaps the program of reparations beginning to fill itself out. And I could probably go on into more detail, but we had, it is moving along, though there is not a local.
I muted Alan at 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, the one thing to remember in giving your reports, after all the reports are given, we'll have some time, I think, left for a discussion about what the opportunities and obstacles are. I think we're doing pretty well in Columbus, so I didn't mention any obstacles, but we would like to hear what obstacles people see about passing an ordinance within your community. So if we could go with Cape Cod, and then we'll go with Charlotte, which is Southern Piedmont. So if we could hear from Donna, or is it Pat
Okay.
O'Brien?
Okay, Pat, why don't you unmute too? We could do it together, but I wanted to just say that since King Charles has been taken the throne in England, there have been a lot of talk about reparations. I think it's wonderful. It's getting out in a global way. All the things, the countries that are asking for things back, and he's willing to talk too. So on Cape Cod, Pat has had contact with a woman, Meadow Dibble, who gives talks about Cape Cod and slave trade reparations, and we'd like to be able to schedule her for our next meeting. She's a speaker, and Pat has contact with her. Pat, can you add to that?
I haven't had any update, but there is a course starting with the Atlantic Box. It's a 6-week course on truth and reconciliation and reparations, and it's run by the Black Box. And I'm thinking about registering for that course. I'm not sure if it costs any money, but it's on Wednesday evenings from 6 to 9. If anybody's interested, you can go to the Atlantic Black Box Project. The other thing is, in the newspaper, I noticed that there is this weekend a symposium on white privilege symposium. So it's kind of interesting that that has come up, and it's in Barnstable, and it does cost money. So I'm not going to go, but I'm really glad that it's happening, and I will probably check and see if there's any recordings about the speeches, and it's going to be on Friday and Saturday in Barnstable. So that's what's going on here.
Yes, so we have a huge, Massachusetts, the first place people came and traded slaves and for rum, the whole cycle from Africa. So we've got a big possibility of people knowing that I think we could take it to the state legislature. I really do. They've already passed it out in Amherst, Mass, but we need to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you, because going to the state legislature is something we do want to approach, because we're thinking the same thing. So Samantha, I got my little alphabets mixed up. So after Samantha, we'll do Burlington with Robin, and then we'll swing to Philadelphia with Sheila, so she can do a check-in and just say what's going on with reparations in the greater Philadelphia area. So Samantha, Robin, and Sheila. Thank you, Samantha.
So in Charlotte right now, I have to say that the work on reparations is mainly being done by North Carolina Justice NC and organizations like that. And they're very focused on a federal program. They're not really focused on statewide. I am talking to people about it in a citywide sense, so that we can at least get something moving in the city. But Charlotte has a really great, bright blue, diverse community. And right now, everybody is like collectively holding their breath about the elections here. So it's been very focused on elections. That is here, and it's a huge concern, and we are working for it. But right now, the focus has been voting, and after that, I mean, we will get the. I happen to be a vice chair on another organization called Protect Our Stolen Treasures, and it's a new nonprofit to Charlotte. It is nationwide. It began in Detroit, but we have a new branch now in Charlotte, and that is some of the work we will be focusing on. Do you want to hear about our election activity at all? Because we had a
No,
wonderful.
no,
Okay.
no, that's for another time.
We
Um,
have a minute and 30 seconds left for Charlotte, and I want to hone in, if I can, horn in briefly.
yes,
It's a plan not completely set, but in August, when I was up in Massachusetts, after one of our meetings, you and Decade or EMI, I apologize, I'm confused about which one. My niece, Raven, and I, and Raven's a member, talked about reparations and how it would, what it would take to get that. Briefly in our time, because I'm almost close to a minute. The plan that we came up with is that she would do, based on the model is a strong word, but based on Columbus, Georgia, she would start doing some online research about slavery in Gaston County. I would reach out to folks in Asheville and find out, what did y'all do? What are some of the steps? I helped with some of those things in Asheville, but wasn't there for the last 6 weeks or so of their campaign. I went to some city council meetings and did some testimony. So she did come up with some research that she and I talked about maybe a month ago. And when I got home from Massachusetts in August, we talked about it. And then a little bit last month, because her hope was that they put together a presentation for Gaston College, assuming she would be in Gaston College by now. She's not. And when we talk about obstacles, I can do it then. We're at 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So that's it for me. Thanks.
so Robin, you're on. 3 minutes.
Muted.
There I am. Okay, I don't have much to report. On the state level, there is a task force. It's run by a good guy, progressive fellow, and it's to study and develop proposals for to cover the institution of chattel slavery. So, however, our legislature is not in action now until January. And of course, the elections are coming and who knows what will happen. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Robin. So we'll go with Sheila. And Sheila, since you haven't checked in, you'll have a little bit more time, I think, if you need it. But we would like to hear your name, your branch, and one good thing that's happened recently. And what do you know about reparations work in the greater Philadelphia area, in the city in particular?
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Harper. I'm with Wilf here in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. We have had 2 anti-racism sessions with our Philadelphia Wolf group. I am actually one of the co-leaders of that, along with Sylvia Metzer. And they were quite successful. The first one was a little bit trying. I know when I got off the phone or off the Zoom, my heart was beating fast. And that's when I knew something was wrong. The second one was much easier. First, we did it in the in the vein of, I guess you would say, comedy. There's a woman who comes on YouTube and she did the A to Z of uh, racism. And so we discussed, we only got through to C. We went through A, we went through B, we went through C. Yeah, so we have a long way to go. We actually decided that we're not going to do every letter of the alphabet because if we only did three on the second session, but it lightened it up quite a bit, and the discussion was good. We had a very diverse group of people on the line. We had people representing the Native Americans, we had people representing Latinos, we had people representing um, just all various facets. We had a psychiatrist who actually leads a team of psychiatrists on similar type discussions. Actually, he's a high school mate of mine who we have worked together with for a number of years, actually since high school. And it was good because, of course, there's a lot of feelings, that everyone has about this whole discussion, this whole thing, the history, and just it's emotional, which is why my heart was beating. So we are moving quickly on that, and I think our next session is scheduled for November the 3rd. No, after election. I'm sorry. So it must be the 13th. After election, of course, like everyone else, we're focused on elections. In terms of reparations, I do work with a couple of groups. Anita Bell out of uh, Detroit, Michigan. I believe it's Detroit. Michigan heads the reparations project, from my understanding, here in the US. Um, right now, there are no bills, to my understanding. I know there are some people who are sensitive, both on the Senate locally, because Pennsylvania is interesting outside of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It doesn't look like Philadelphia or Pittsburgh at all. So I think that because we have had, in all sincerity, let me be honest, everybody's focused on the elections right now. We have a very contentious election between Dr. Oz and who isn't a resident of even Pennsylvania, and John Fetterman, and then we have
Uh,
Mastrano.
okay, Sheila, no election talk.
I know.
So we
I'm
need to
sorry.
move on to the next person.
Okay.
Your 3 minutes
Okay.
are up.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you. For those who haven't met Sheila, she's a relatively new member of the Philadelphia branch. And we do have our Black Liberation Caucus meetings. And Sheila, of course, is a part of that, just so people know. So we'll do San Francisco, and we have two folks from San Francisco, and then we'll do San Jose. So Philip and Barbara, decide how you want to split that up. So Barbara is unmuted, so we'll let Barbara go first. If you want to take a minute and a half and see if Philip has anything, or however you want to do it, Barbara, what's happening with reparations in the great golden state of California, because I know there's big state stuff going on there. So you want to tell us a little bit about what you know.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. But in fact, I have little knowledge of it right now. As I said, I had family here for a while, and so I think we're going to have to count on Philip to do a report on what's going on now in California. California is a huge state, so mostly the north of California, where San Francisco is not that knowledgeable about the South. But anyway, let's see if Phil has anything to give. And I'm sorry for the shortness of my report.
Hey, I am meeting with a vendor currently. I'll be available
Well,
to.
Philip, I've given reports before. Go
Okay,
ahead, Philip.
I'm meeting with a vendor currently. I'll be available to speak on the issue in about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind. So Joan, if you could tell us, I know you're with some great people there in San Jose. So if you could tell us what's going on in San Jose, thank you. Oh, you gotta unmute yourself, Joan.
Yep. Sorry.
Oh, we can't hear
Okay.
you, Joan.
Now I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Sorry about that. Was getting ready before when I knew my time was coming. But anyway, okay. So actually the work that's happening in our area, which is the southern end of the San Francisco Bay Area, I'll talk about that, but also about the state a little bit, and then Philip can fill in more. The Santa Clara County, South Bay, etc., which the largest city is San Jose. It has an organization, a longtime organization called the African American Community Services Agency, and they have started working on reparations at least a year ago. And so the rest of us in other organizations are joining in gradually, and some of our folks went to a program last spring where there were speakers, including from Evanston, Illinois, and where they have done some successful work on reparations. So that was inspiring. We've had one meeting this fall, which was about educational challenges or work on reparations in regard to education opportunities. And there is a meeting that's coming up on this afternoon, so I will have more information after that. But what I'm working on myself is that our WILF branch, which is called the San Jose branch, and there's also a Palo Alto branch in Santa Clara County, and they're interested in working too. I'll keep trying to work on getting somebody to come to these meetings from Palo Alto. Sorry. So what is happening is that we are at the local level here, and I think probably San Francisco, and in the southern part of and other parts of California, we're working on how to learn more through the work of the Reparations Committee, or excuse me, it's a task force at the state level. And they have published a 500-page information item, which I'm going to put the link for it in the chat, because it is a national information thing with a focus in each section of it on different aspects of the need for reparations. That there is a section on California, but you can use it. Most of it is national, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just add to it. So I think that's probably the extent of what I need to say. As I said, we're going to have a meeting on the third Friday of November, and our topic is reparations, and I will do a better job of talking with them about what's happening than I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Well, Joan, that was a great report. What we have time for, because it's just 2:35, is we want to do a second kind of 3-minute round, but to focus in on the significance of the UN decade and what is happening, because once that resolution was passed at the Triennial Congress in July, there is a lot of activity going on in recognition of the UN decade. So George timed me, so I've been talking about 30 seconds, so I got about 2.5 minutes to go before I kind of bring this together about how the UN decade is really generating a lot of activity, including getting AFRICOM out of Africa, including the Pan-African Congress, which meets somewhat irregularly, but all of people who will consider themselves Pan-Africanists around the world will be meeting in Zimbabwe in April of 2023. I'm a part of a group called the Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress. We meet every 2 weeks on Sunday. And so when we met on the 16th, we'll be meeting again this Sunday. When we met on the 16th, the person from South Africa in our group, because there are people from Ghana, South Africa, Burkina Faso, all over, and the US who are of African descent, people from Nigeria and other countries. And Lucy Murphy, another WILF member, and I are in this group that meets every couple of Sundays. And so we have decided that the person representing our group from South Africa will travel to Zimbabwe to participate in that International Pan-African Congress. But we're having a AFRICOM out of Africa webinar coming up in December that George and I are working on. And that webinar will make the connection between the madness that's going on with NATO right now and NATO's interventions into Africa. But right now, NATO is building up unbelievable troop surge at the Russian border with Romania. This is very dangerous, but NATO also has a number of agreements with African countries around counter-terrorism. So we see that the world is a very dangerous place at this point, and Africa is a big part of that danger because the US has so many bases all over Africa. So I just want us to get deeper into why reparations is a key demand in this period leading up to December of 2024. We want to try to get something done in all of the branches participating by December of 2024. Just a reminder, and I see that Sheila has her hand up, so we'll just call on people as you raise your hands for your 3 minutes. Nothing about the
Okay, I
Sheila,
promise. I'm sorry.
but anything you
I'm
would say about what we're
Yes,
doing
I'm sorry.
here.
I did
Thank you.
forget to say that the Quakers here in Philadelphia, in my area of town, have decided to do reparations in the sense of they are dedicating $500,000 to occur over the next 10 years to assist people who are about to lose their home, any what do you call uh tangled webs or tangled, you know what I'm talking about, estate paperwork, you know, for taxes, whatever legal pieces in order to maintain wealth in the community, provide legal services in support of that. I think that's an excellent template because there's always discussion about gentrification, and I think that's a good template in terms of, in again, we're talking Quakers, you know, and they have actually been very active in the Philadelphia area. So that's one of the, not all of the Quakers, that's one of the houses, because I understand I actually work with a couple of different Quaker groups, and there's some people that are okay, and there's some people that are not okay. So I just wanted to add that to it because I forgot. I'm sorry. Okay, and I can't help with the election stuff. We're all overwhelmed with it. So, okay,
Well,
that's all I need to say.
well, we understand about the election stuff. Well, look at here. Emily Ricketts has joined us, so we're up to 13. So Emily Ricketts, you have to sing a song. The last person at the meeting has to sing a song. I'm joking, Emily, but we do need to have you introduce yourself, your branch, and we're asking everybody to say one good thing that they want to share with us. Emily Ricketts. Unmute yourself, Emily. Emily is from the Tucson branch. And so Gloria McMillan introduced me to Emily a while back. And I said, Emily, you need to join. And she joined. And so Emily Ricketts, she's one of our senior folks. So she told me she's 80. And so we got Alan. I think Alan has us all beat, right, Alan? Come on, Alan, fest up while we're talking.
86.
Yes, sir. And going strong.
Going strong.
Emily, Emily, you're unmuted. So, stay unmuted, Emily. We need you to introduce yourself. Come on, Emily. I've told people a lot about you.
Okay.
There she is.
No,
I heard her say, okay, I thought.
Okay, I should be unmuted. Can you
You're
hear me?
unmuted. You're unmuted now, Emily. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I said that I'm a year older than, I guess it's Alan. So I'm 87.
Oh,
So
wow. I didn't realize that.
yeah,
Wonderful.
you know,
Well, that's definitely a bit of good news. So
well,
anything else you want to tell us about? Great. I know how active you are in the community there.
Yeah.
Any other good news from Tucson?
okay, it's not necessarily, well, I guess it's good news. I just want to say I signed up to Zoom, but I am so busy with other organizations that I am connected with. So I fairly often miss getting into the WILF. And like on Sunday, I can't join because I'm involved with a activity that I committed to in the African American community. Well, actually the whole Tucson community. So I will not, but that it will be recorded.
Yes, and we will share the recording with you, Emily.
Great, okay, because I'd love to be with you, but I can't. But anyway, good news, I'm well and things are going well. And I'm hoping and that our midterm elections are going to be good turnout, the way that I hope they will turn out. So anyway.
Well, thank you, Emily. I agree that because there have been so many attempts to suppress the Black vote, it is a part of the demand for reparations. To end voter suppression is certainly a reparations demand, because that would repair decades upon decades of people being denied the right to vote in the South. So that part is really important to understand. So no one's raising their hands. So housing, poverty, doing research on access to housing and poverty seems important to think about in terms of reparations. George, your hand is up, so please speak.
Well, I want to ask your advice. In part because my 18-year-old niece isn't yet able to go to Gaston College. When we were talking about reparations, and she mentioned the Truth and Reconciliation process, which honestly I'm not a big fan of. But I was not able to give her a good definition of the difference between truth and reconciliation, which the model that we were talking about was in South Africa, and reparations. For me, I told her it was about power, but when we looked at some of the reparations, when we looked at Evanston and then Asheville, there wasn't a lot of conceded power. You know, it wasn't like the African American community will have X number of city council seats or X number of guaranteed say about who gets government contracts or anything like that. So all that I talked to her about wasn't really on the paper. So anybody got good information of what's the difference between truth and reconciliation and reparations?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the first things about repairing the injustice of white supremacy is for an apology. So the United States Congress apologized years ago for slavery and lynchings in particular. In South Africa, at the end of apartheid, there was an apology, a big apology. And then people began to meet to reconcile how can they share that space with the reforms that needed to take place. And one very good example, George, that you could share with Raven is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that took place in Greensboro, North Carolina, after the 1979 massacre, when the Klan broke into a demonstration and killed a bunch of folks who were standing up against white supremacy. There have to be records of that truth and reconciliation process because it did result in payments to Walina Cannon, who was part of the Communist Workers' Party at the time. They were the ones who in some ways got blamed by the community for the deaths because they openly confronted the Klan. So there's history in North Carolina of truth and reconciliation. See, the first thing that we'll be getting here in Columbus is an apology. So part of what it makes the truth and reconciliation work is we're so sorry. And as one of my friends say, it's not enough to say sorry, you got to do sorry. And so the do sorry is what can you do to repair the damage of denying people their constitutional right to an adequate education. It's in the Georgia Constitution, but Black people have been denied and are consistently denied to this very day. So what about housing and access to housing? So this is how we build the repair, because that's what reparations is. How do we repair the damage of white supremacy over these hundreds of years? And so please check out the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which your friend Cynthia Brown was on, by the way, that operated in Greensboro about the 1979 massacre. So
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought that up, George, because that's important. There's a lot to say sorry for. And so I think Alan was kind of alluding to some of that in his region. So Alan, you're unmuted. So could we hear from you?
Yeah, well, let's see. I appreciated this discussion that just went on. When after my report, you said you wish that there was more attention to what are the obstacles with which we need to deal. I believe there are going to be 2 African-American people on the city council, the new city council. However, the new city council is a complete slate of the mayor who opposes the commons, who opposes, I believe, what we are talking about, though it has not been put to him. But the city council is in opposition to basically a ground up democracy that is with which I am associated. And it could be that I myself am an obstacle because I'm a polarizing figure for some as the last standing remnant of the old movement of Ann Arbor for democracy. I don't know exactly how to deal with our political situation, but it is very fragmented. And anything that is really stepping out of line with the line of the mayor is up against a hard political opposition. And while we beat that opposition before at the ballot box, I hope we do not have to beat it again and would rather see how can we join a sense for the third century of Ann Arbor in repairing what have been errors and wrongs of the past, where everybody can cooperate together and be their best selves. But right now, it's a very polarized situation. Ann Arbor has a reputation of a progressive place, but that's a lot of charade hiding behind self-righteousness and a very conservative attitude of develop and build for the future and don't pay too much attention to the people who are here, because the poorer ones are going to be moved out of town and new rich folks are going to come to be the new Ann Arbor. So that's a bit of our looking at the opposition. We are dealing with a different culture in Ann Arbor than one that wants to actually look at the repair. But we do have a new president of the university, as I said at the beginning, who began what his words in public at the university with that question. So I'm hopeful that maybe there's a shifting of old impasses coming ahead.
Well, Alan, my friend Peter Solenberger, did he ever get in touch with you?
No, I wrote to him and I never heard back. I wish I would. We need much more of a sense of how to. This is a much wider mobilization than our particular question.
Well, you know, because Alan, Peter worked at the university. And so he has a good sense of the town gown relationships. And so that's a very big, powerful university. And the Black people who work there that Peter worked with, who were engaged in Black liberation activities. That's why it's so important to build the town gown relationships when you're talking about reparations, because what you described about the university president sounds like a really good thing. But the people in the town of Ann Arbor, who in many cases work in menial jobs at the university, cleaning the place, etc., those are the folks who are really deserving of the reparations conversation. So how do you include them so that there are Black people in Ann Arbor a part of the decisions about what reparations are needed? Because there are Black people in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti.
Yes, indeed.
And that is what you have to build, is that multicultural, multiracial alliance, so that it's not just appearing to be white people doing something for people. So my friend Peter I think can help with that. So I'll make sure that Peter, see, you were in France for so long, and I think he may have tried to contact you when you were in France.
Could be. Well, jingle him up again and I'll write him a note again. It would be good if we could talk. He could give me some good direction.
Yeah, because I will definitely ask him to. He's my longtime comrade. And so I know he will step in, since he lived in Ann Arbor for many years, yes, before he moved up north. Now he's really up north in the deep snow area. So I'll make sure he gets in touch. but we're getting close to the end. So I wonder if Philip is ready to talk. If not, we're gonna open up for a few announcements and then make sure that we're okay with the next date for our meeting. So Philip, did you want to do the San Francisco report?
Okay. What I will say, the California Task Force on Reparations is moving right along. And I think the unique aspect of some of their work is working with the prison system as far as they're including mass incarceration with their efforts on reparations. And one of the things that they're working on is basically prison slave labor, because of course prisoners get paid pennies to do work for the state of California, and they also are hired out to private vendors and paid a minimum wage to do work for private vendors. But the gap between the prison labor wage and the private, minimum wage is basically astronomical. They get paid, like anywhere from a dime an hour to work in the prison system for the state of California, 50 cents if you're working on fire reduction. But if you're working for a private company, which that law has only been in effect for about 20 years, you're paid minimum wage. But having that gap in between minimum wage and prison wages is a very dangerous, nefarious situation, because the people who get to make the choice of who gets the minimum wage is in a position to play favoritism, and it actually causes a lot of problems in the prison. I worked for a company which was a first vendor to use prison labor, and one of the first workers ended up being killed shortly after getting out of prison because he owed somebody some money for getting minimum wage versus getting state wages. So it's a very dangerous situation, and hopefully this task force will address that gap. And so it's a multifaceted situation as far as reparations go in California. And so the task force is continuing their work. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Philip, because California is the place to watch, because California is where many of us might want to be in having a statewide reparations movement and ordinance. And thanks to Joan for putting information in the chat, and thanks to Pat. So George, if you could be sure to save the chat so that we can click on those links, and I can make some copies for our work here. But I do have to ask permission. We usually have a hard stop in 1 hour, but Sister Mama Fatima just joined us, and she's very active in Cobra. So if you're willing to stay on for another 5 minutes, raise your hand and say it's okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay, good. So if we could go to Mama Fatima, we're all introducing ourselves with your name, where you're from, working, and anything you want to tell us in the way of good news. And if you could tell us what's happening in Cobra, that would be great. So Mama Fatima, please.
Oh, well, first of all, greetings to everyone. And I seriously apologize for being late, but there was some scheduling conflicts, but I'm glad that I at least showed up to show my support, whatever, for whatever it's worth. What's going on within Cobra right now?
Well, say your name and where you're from first, so everybody knows.
My name is Mama Fatima, also known as Claudia Peary Smith, but everybody calls me Mama Fatima. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana for right now. And what we've been busy doing here with our New Orleans chapter is working on getting people to vote yes on ballot issue 7 that's coming up on November the 8th, which is to remove the language of slavery out of the Louisiana state constitution. And it is an uphill battle. The main penitentiary, they have several, but the main is Angola, where they've got prisoners working for 2 cents an hour, while the corporations that are using their farm products that are being grown or whatever else they're doing up there are just making millions. And we are having a knockdown, drag out. I'm hoping we won't have to go back the next election fighting the same thing. But in the mind of many Louisianans, slavery never ended. So the culture of the state we're working in is being very difficult to work with. The person that wrote the bill, the representative that wrote the bill, it appears he's dealing with a lot of intimidation. So we're trying to get the word out. We had an event on Tuesday in conjunction with another Louisiana group called De-Incarcerate Louisiana. And that's the group that did a documentary on Angola and the impact of slave labor on the inmates as well as the rest of society. And it's called, if you can get a hold of it some kind of way, it's called Slave State. Was a documentary that was done. It's very, very good. It explains the issue really, really well. Also, the bill is coming up in Vermont, Tennessee, Alabama, and Oregon. And so we've also been reaching out to those areas to try to get them to see how many people that they can persuade to vote yes to get slavery out of the language. Because this prison labor thing is not only a tool, but it is actually what we in Cobra call a lingering effect of slavery. So I'm already late. I don't want to keep you. So, but that's where things are right now.
Great, and I will try to get in touch with you by phone. But Donna, you had your hand up, Madam Chair of Human Rights, Advancing Human Rights.
Thank you. I just had one quick announcement. I hope everyone was able to see the PBS special on Fannie Lou Hamer. It was on October 6th. And if you have an ability to go on to PBS programs, it was really special. Want to make sure everybody knew about it.
Well, good. I believe we have about 9 states represented in this call. We have Arizona, we have California, we have North Carolina, we have Georgia, we have Louisiana, we have Pennsylvania, we have Vermont, and Mary Foster, where are you in what state?
South Central California.
Oh, so good. So we have 3 people here from California. That's great. And so we have Michigan. So this is really important. I'm so pleased with how the meeting has turned out today. Our next meeting, we're proposing for November 17th. What we'd like to try to do is do every 3rd Thursday of the month. So if we could do the 3rd Thursday of November, which is November 17th, and we could kind of keep that up, like we meet on every 2nd Monday of the month for EMIDP. And George and I both co-convene these 2 subcommittees of advancing human rights. So we want to try to get a little bit of consistency to our meetings. So could you, I'll take off my camera. I'm a bit of a mess, but I'll take off my camera and we can raise our hands if we're okay with November 17th. So it's looking pretty good. So it's the 2 p.m. hour. So Joan, are you okay? Oh, okay, good. Well, it looks like we have a next meeting planned. And so in the meantime, be safe, and we'll see you on the 17th, if not sooner. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. And thank you, George.